Notice how Joe has his lap set up, so the owl can't see him.
All right, we're good.
You're all right, okay, good morning, everybody. It's my honor to open the board meeting on August 22nd, a little after. All board members are present with the exception of James Trudell, who has a doctor's appointment this morning and couldn't be here. I think since we're live, we're going to go around the room. I'm Charles Copeland, Chairman.
Rachel Johnson, Vice Chair.
Chuck Coffey, Water Commissioner.
I'm Bill Kahn, financial.
Sarah Terrell, HR Journalist.
Bill Simcoe, I'm Deputy Commissioner.
Laura Golfo, Council.
Steve Mercier, Marketing Communications.
Ariful Islam, Senior Accountant.
Chris Powers, Director of Fiscal Operations, sorry.
Fiscal. Finance.
They changed right now. And the Allen's treasurer.
Carol's Assistant.
We have two people from the public who are here. We're delighted. Tom Ellis and Mr. Borton. So would you like to say something?
Yes.
Yeah, 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
We have a big agenda.
Okay. Well, good morning. I think most of you know me. My name is Tom Ellis. I'm an Albany resident. Thank you for allowing me to speak again. At your July 25th meeting, I gave Mr. Trump, say your name right?
Right.
A link to the federal judge Edward Chen's September 24, 2024 ruling in the Food and Water Watch versus the United States EPA. It urged the Water Board to carefully review an 80-page decision. It also urged the Water Board to refuse to fluoridate the city's water supply. I'd like to know if the Water Board or its attorneys have looked at Judge Chen's ruling and the many scientific reports he based his decision on.
We responded to you with the document that we put together about the situation by mail. Did you get that?
I got a 2-page letter in the mail a few days ago, which I have here. This year.
Yeah.
That didn't answer the question I just asked.
No, that's our answer. So anything else you have to say?
Yeah. So in his ruling, Judge Chen said, this is a quote, page 78. There is significant certainty in the data set regarding the association between fluoride and reduced IQ. Namely, there is a robust body of evidence finding a statistically significant adverse association between fluoride and IQ. The large majority of the 72 epidemiological studies assessed by the National Toxicology Program monograph observed this relationship, including all but one of the 19 high-quality studies. And literature published after the NTP monograph cutoff date observed the same relationship. End quote. On page 79, in the conclusions of law, the first one, quote, plaintiffs have proven by a preponderance of the evidence that water fluoridation at the level of 0.7 milligrams per liter, the prescribed optimal level of fluoridation in the United States, presents an, quote, unreasonable risk of injury to health or the environment without consideration of costs or other non-risk factors, including an unreasonable risk to a potentially exposed or susceptible subpopulation under the conditions of use. End quotes. Immediately following the July 25th meeting, Mr. Houghton urged me to take my concerns to the City Council, which I have done many times and as recently as Monday this week. I believe the City Council majority was skillfully misled by local medical professionals who for some reason are obsessed with imposing water fluoridation on Albany residents. I understand the Water Board believes it has no choice other than to obey the directives of the city government. I understand this. However, I believe that you have the right and the duty to notify the city government and the mayor that there is considerable high-quality evidence from around the world that water fluoridation is or may not be safe for some people, especially infants and children not yet born, and to ask the city government to either reverse their decision from last year to fluoridate the city's water supply or to delay implementation of it by at least 1 year. I'd like to note for the record that my colleagues Rick North and Patricia Pierce have sent a letter to the mayor on August 17th requesting a meeting with her to discuss the water fluoridation. And I mailed a letter to this board on August 8th explaining some of my ideas that I can provide you with another copy if you want. Okay, thank you.
That's fine. Thank you very much. You're welcome to stay. We appreciate your being here. We're gonna carry on with our business now.
I just,
Oh, you wanna say something? Mr.
just,
Ford?
yeah, just quickly.
Go ahead. Thank you, sir.
This was in yesterday's Altamont Enterprise, Thursday's edition. It was a letter to the editor. I would like to just submit it to the board for the record.
Okay. Thank you. Three copies from David. All right. We now have committee. Oh, we have to approve the minutes.
Sorry. I guess the only other thing is, Tom Ellis brought up this idea of having you review that legislation, and if you don't go to the city with your concerns, will the water board be liable if anybody gets injured by the fluoridation?
I don't know. You know all the answers. I don't know that.
I don't,
Well, that's a question for the record, thank you.
Yeah.
all right, that's a question for the record.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, I need the minutes have been submitted. If there's no objection, we don't need to read the minutes, but I'd like a motion to approve them as submitted. So moved, second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. Now we need, thanks, kid. Committee and other reports, the finance committee. Or the finance report from Chris.
Hey, welcome, everybody. This is the monthly report through July 31st, 2025. First part of it is from in a year-to-date basis, we have collected revenues of $22.4 million, an increase of $1 million and $15,000 from the period in prior year. You'll see that the monthly collections for July are significantly a decrease from the prior years. A number of factors. There's a catch up related to the M&T issue we had in the prior year that reflected that month, and also we had some collection issues with respect to OGS being one of them that we're trying to straighten out as we speak. That was the majority of that sort of aged collections there. So that's something that we're working on. That should be, there's anomalies. We're talking about collections here, not sales. That would be more consistent. These are collections, and 24 was a little crazy. They'll kind of piled up in 1 month, and this month we've had a for whatever reason we're figuring out some later collections on our second most important client, if you will. So we're working on that. Miscellaneous revenues, 106,000. Customer penalties for the period and interest for the period, 44,000. Year to date through July, interest penalties revenue of $210,000. So that's a nice extra a piece of us to help our working capital. Our expenditures through the day through July, almost $2.7 million higher than the previous year. That is in line with us ramping up, particularly in our equipment and particularly in our vehicles, things of that nature, of sort of catching up on those capital expenditures that weren't incurred, weren't able to be incurred in prior years. The hope is that starts to level out. We'll see this get a little better as we get into the second half of 2025. Next page, our overall capital spend relatively low at 343,000, and we have 3 disbursements coming in. I think they're all grant, I believe. Yes, for
It's like $22,000. So.
I'm sorry. Oh no, okay, sorry. We do have 1 loan for 22,000. The remaining 189 and 59 and about 475,000 all grants, which related to Beaver Creek some leftover from Beaver Creek financing and the wetlands project and the Tygate cash flow management. Actual versus budget, again, revenues for the period were under budget, 1.2 million. Year-to-date revenues under budget by about 2 million. So again, some timing there. Expenditures under budget, 856 year-to-date. 4.9 million. This cushion is put in there from year-to-date budget. Age receivables, 2.6. Again, this is reflecting our collections number a bit. This is high by our standards. This should be, certainly maybe in the million or, we've experienced 1.5 million. We have good payers, in our business, people pay. Sometimes it's delayed. And we've had that on basically on the reverse side from our accounts payable. Again, that should be lower, and we're working out and trying to do a little more robust analysis, certainly of our bigger clients that are responsible for 40% of our business. But overall, we're doing that as well. Good news on this. So we have our new line of credit. It's actually this set at 2 million for the longest time. It's actually 2,050,000 that we have from M&T. So that is in effect. It is attached to our operating account. We've been trying to do this forever, Chuck. So this was, it ended up, Lauren, thank you for everything on that. This ended up being more of a process than we thought it was going to be. I thought it was just an easy transfer, but granted, it was a new piece of debt that we're incurring. A lot of the administration goes along with that, obviously. So I wasn't totally aware of. Because that is set up, and again, now, so we have about $2 million available under that line of credit for hopefully just emergencies.
Thank you very good, folks.
They're done. They're paid out. We're good. So that's and if you remember, was also an audit comment that we needed to get rid of those guys. So that'll pop off our management letter comments in the next fiscal year. And interest paid year to date almost $800,000, and again, that line of credit was about 46,000 of that, and the other interest piece is about 750,000. So that's given our debt balance, that's a fairly low interest payment. Frankly, we get obviously great terms from the EFC. That's why we deal with this. We borrow some of this. Sometimes there's no interest paying principal. Sometimes it's very low interest, and so that is those are good numbers compared to what our balances are. Next page is just our sort of our normal, we kind of talked about it just on the first two verbiage, but again, you'll see sort of the water collections jump off the page a little bit for the month. Year to date, we're 22 million, 1.4 compared to 21.3. Around that's a 4.75 percent increase. Again, we're trying to work out some of the collections issues. There was a 10% rate increase. We expect that number to be closer to 10%, at least in the 7 or 8% range. And so we're working on those analysis to make sure that we've identified the problem children in that aren't paying on time and should be. Again, good clients, just delayed collections. And on the expense side, we spoke to that 17 million year to date versus 14 million in 2024. Again, we really ramped up, and I think you'll see it on the departmental page on our equipment expenses. And if you walk into our garage, you're going to see a lot of revamped vehicles that have been caught up, both our expensive ones and just some of our normal fleet.
I'm looking at year to date on where we are. We're kind of running well under the percent budgeted year to date. I'm not sure we're going to close at the budgeted number at the end of the year. I don't see it happening.
It's gonna be lower. There's no question. I think if you look back historically, even if you had a 10% range, it was coming in at about 8%. At best, people adjust, but businesses adjust. But certainly there were some collection issues. It shouldn't be that low. I'll put it that way. And so I think
our expenses.
Yeah. I'll start from the expense side.
The expenses side, I think, are going to close lower than we probably thought they were going.
Oh, it's possible. Yeah, I think
I don't see what the expenses that we've got coming.
We wrapped up earlier in the year. I think, like I said, I think that'll reflect.
Where we are year to date compared to our other years to date, we're lower.
I believe that'll even out. Yeah, I agree.
But on the revenue side, it rolled over, and it makes it difficult to think we're going to get there until we see what that number is.
Right.
Until you get there.
Yeah. That's fair. It's a nuance to this. But I mean, overall, I was positive it's going in the right direction. Our strong clients continue to be our strongest clients, and some of our other ancillary ones, the 100,000, 200,000.
position.
Yeah, so overall, it's favorable, but should be better, so we're working on that, so. Last piece, debt service costs, yeah, you're gonna see that obviously from, some debt has dropped off from 24. This is just the interest piece of it, not the principal, so we pay a lot more principal typically than we do interest. So that's fairly consistent. Next page is just our overall revenue. Picture that also includes some of our ancillary costs. So we talked about the revenue from above, the cash receipts below. This is all gravy to us. We had some higher year-to-date collections of some share reimbursements and some tax refunds and things of that nature that made that a pretty significant number. The rest are fairly consistent. We're still dealing, I believe Huck Finn still owes us their settlement number. Laura, I think that's about, what was that, 15 or 17,000?
12.
Oh, 12, okay, so 12 and change was, so, some other upside receivables are weighing on there. Next page, Karen, thank you. This is the departmental page, so just to jump down to the bottom, kind of echoing what I said previously, you'll see that the equipment costs, again, that's up for, 604% from prior year, and then you're gonna see that, sort of similar, not as much obviously with contractual, that's sort of the next one there. That stayed relatively consistent, but yeah, we had a big ramp up of costs in the first part of this year, so that we hope that level, I'm not sure what else is on the horizon, we'll see. But that's so that reflects what I was saying before, and and our salaries are relatively, personal services includes taxes and benefits, things of that nature is relatively consistent. So next page. This is the summary of our capital spend going back to 1995. Summer, we have a slow month here with $343,000 of capex that was spent. We have a bit of a backlog there that should be probably a little higher. I think we'll see that number jump up in September as we start to get it to the end of the year and start trying to finish off some of these projects before the end of the year. So you'll see that number ramp up a bit, and then the core, the borrowings don't always match the capex. They're meant to. But since we're in July, we have between grants and financing, it's about 777,000 of financing. The majority of that by far, certainly in this month, was grants. We obviously want to see that overall to date. It's mostly grants as well. It's almost $3.5 million compared to $1 million of actual borrowing. So that's something that's that's great. Next page is just our overall our overtime analysis. We've done this, we presented this from month to month, fairly consistent. It's higher. A lot of things have gone on this year. You're able to see a function to nature, and I think this is it's been pretty consistent, but it's definitely higher than prior year. The due to, due from, that's at about 2.4 million. I think this was high about 3 million maybe a couple of months ago, but it's last month. So this is again, we've been talking about this due to, due from, and why we think we got to make sure to see about the money coming into that account. We should always have a fairly high receivable coming back to us. Never should be owing by our calculations. So to keep that, I would love to take $1 million out of, or have that ability to draw on this amount that is technically owed to us. It's real money going back and forth. So we're going to wait to see where we get to November, December area and see what that number really is. And our belief is, in our projection, that we should be owed something, and we're going to collect on it. You guys know better. I'm assuming there was collections in years prior. If that balance got up there, someone took it. So I'm not sure what happened there, but we're gonna precedent if we're owed money, and we're going to take it, because again, obviously there's things we can put towards, never mind that. I want to get rid of that $2 million line of credit. I'd like to have that completely available. That costs about 9,000, about 10,000 a month interest. That'd be a nice salary for
But
somebody.
again, I
Yeah,
think that reflects the
Yeah.
fact that we're 70% of our expense budget year to date. We give them the budget transfer schedule, all this money based on 100% budget number.
Yeah.
So that should be money that's owed to us.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So we're monitoring it, and that's why they know we're looking at it. I
It'd be
mean,
nice to get that for paying my credit off.
absolutely, and that would free up real cash that we could use for some definitely needed positions. Anyway, so we're on that, and we've been including that schedule that or if here helped us put together, and then we'll look at that. But this is the aging. Again, if you're going to look at the over 120 and say what the heck is going on here, the majority of it is still with OGS. We've been looking into that for the past week or so, and trying to figure out if something's been applied or misapplied, and we'll have an answer on that shortly. And it's there. They have a lot of our bigger clients have their own reporting systems. You have to go and actually fill in, put the information in, and then they process the information. We have access to their reporting system. Construction companies would do that a lot, where just send them a bill. You have to go online and fill out all these things and forms, and OGS is very much like that. So there's an administrative aspect of that makes that bill particularly difficult. But again, we're on it. We know anything, we've kind of been okay with 60. We've been okay, even 90, maybe we shouldn't be, and even 90, 120 is not acceptable under any level, and we need to get ahead of that. The next piece is our normal Route 7 comparison, year to date, and you'll see our usual players are very strong. With SUNY Polytechnic and OGS, between the two of them, the math in my head was probably about 30% overall world revenue. That is, that is high. So we depend upon them, and we need to get those right. And OGS being the one we were just talking about. There's other ones remaining here. Overall strong. Anomalies that don't totally make sense, but again, 24. It was, none of us are relatively new, and sometimes it's not going to be apples to apples. But we're working on figuring out what at least our normal run rate should be, no matter what happened in the past, and keep it consistent so we can do proper comparables in 26. You'll notice Bethlehem has ramped up fairly nicely from comparison to 24. There's been a need there. That's a bonus. I wasn't expecting really anything prior to 25 from these guys, or something smaller. So that's a nice piece of revenue, and a nice piece of I think work by Bill Simcoe pulling that contract together. We have he was the architect of that. So that's great. Next page is again the due from that 2 point, the very far right hand number is just the number that I mentioned before. They owe us $2.4 million, broken up between these sort of major categories. You can see again, we talked about it. This is the expense categories are basically offset by our tax roll. So this is where we're at, and again, we're through July, so we're watching it. We don't see a huge change. It's going to keep. It might get well down a little bit, but with us hopefully having less expenses, as Joe pointed out, we should have by the end of the year, in my belief, an actual receivable that we can collect on. So that's the goal. And again, this was a lot. This is something that was not done in the past, as far as I can tell. We've scoured our files. So this is analysis that we put in front of them, and they know that we're on top of this. And we're not just going to accept bills anymore from them, or spreadsheets saying what we owe. We need, if you can't support it, we're going to need some justification, or we're going to have to make some very serious decisions. So this is the base schedule that's going to help us out with those negotiations at some point. Anyway, so the next, this is all right. Pulled this together. It was fantastic. You have no idea the amount of data that it takes to pull. You see all these categories. There's thousands and thousands. So you have to have the right people to pull together a schedule like that. And kudos to Ari for helping do that. Next page here is just our normal our routes, and these have been strong. This is the best page we ever this is the best for last, if you will. These have been strong, and we like the trajectory there, that it's going in that right direction. It should be around that area. I think we've done some more, I don't want to call it auditing it, but I think, between, Bill and Andrea and her team, they've rectified some meter issues in the past. I think have also contributed to this fairly sizable increase on top of the normal rate. So that's the numbers we want to see for Route 7. And if that happens, then we're really in business. But the residential is very strong, and we see no reason why that's not going to continue.
And again, these are leading indicators, cash flow, so.
Yeah. So that is the monthly report for July year to date and the month. Our budget. So once again, we're a bit behind the eight ball on the number of factors outside of the audit, which is always typically around this area. The work on the line of credit, some of the things have sort of pushed us off a bit. So we're finalizing this sort of as of today. After this meeting, we're actually pulling together our overall draft of an estimate of what from the salaries, which was a big analysis. Joe gets really involved in that. Arif and I more so on the departmental side of the cost. So we're expecting to have, Joe has to have, that's next Thursday?
So I had a meeting with the mayor and the budget director next Thursday.
So when we have
Will be done.
so when we have a good draft of that, we'll distribute that. So, but we've, again, I think I mentioned my email, we're taking a deeper dive, certainly on the departmental cost level, to make sure that we're just not doing an inflationary increase. Make sure we're looking at trends, because we need to see. We can't just help our bottom line through billing. We need to find some savings throughout our department. So we think we're going to have that. The question is, how much do we need from a revenue standpoint to cover all of these things and give us enough cushion to make sure that the budget's realistic. And if you remember, this is a unique kind of budget where the revenue on the city hall side is made to equal the expenses. We're not allowed to have profit. So a lot of that was, so it behooves us almost in a way we have to make sure we really got the right revenue number there. And in years past, we also included the tax roll as part of that revenue. I'm not sure that's fair to us. So point being, we got a few things to work out. We're not totally done. But certainly by today, end of today, Monday, we'll be meeting and we'll be able to get you maybe a draft of that, and we can all take a look at it. So apologies, a little late, but we're getting there. A lot of summer's busy, so there's about 3 things going on at once. But we're working on it. Budget on the audit. So yes, we should have. I asked for about 15 copies of the finalized audit, but we're good. We answered the questions. They're actually in the responses, and that was Chuck. That was the right idea to us respond, because they probably sound a little harsher than they actually were, but they gotta make sure they're doing their job. So overall, very positive. It couldn't have gone, and certainly Arif and I know, and Bill, it couldn't have gone much better as opposed, and then particularly in comparison to prior years. So we have a template set up that we can kind of work throughout the year, that our summers aren't going to be so busy anymore. We can knock this out in a week, and as long as it's nothing crazy business wise and it's consistent, we've almost, I don't call it easy, but we've we definitely have a formula how to do it now in a process. And I really like the partners from EFPR. These are smart guys. They interactive, talk to them throughout the year, and that's not, just seeing them around all the time. And if we have questions and guidance, we've been able to bounce things off them, and they've proven valuable. So sometimes it's luck of the draw with these guys, and maybe we got lucky, but the audit is done. The line of credit is done. We're just gonna get the budget and our basically our rate discussion done. We have our forecast, which is certainly part of that discussion to figure, just make sure that we're covering everything. And that's what we're jumping on right after this. So
Chris, have you done a reply to your letter reply to the auditors?
Yes,
Okay.
it's actually in the,
I didn't get to see it.
yeah, it's in the report, so they,
Wait for a while.
yeah.
Trying to get.
I can forward you it all, so if you want, yeah, they have the PDF version, so yeah, so, yeah, they were acceptable, they understood, you know, the main one was. The first one is that, you know, okay, we were given financials that, you know, needed some adjustments to, that always happens, and, and it was 90% less than it was the year before, so we're going in the right direction, and again, I think they just kind of needed to make a few comments, and again, and then Bank of America, they're gone, so they're, you know, I think we got a pretty good deal with, the work that we did with M&T, so I'm very happy about that, and it's easy to access, if we ever needed that money from Bank of America, you're filling out forms, weeks could go by. That's not how it works there. We can actually draw down. It's almost like a line of credit on your own bank. So, you know, we do a little reporting for it, get a little more work. But outside of that, it's the real kind of safety net that we need, particularly in, you know, in the project-based culture that, you know, that we have. So, that is it for the sort of my 3 points. I think, I don't know, I guess, Bill, I don't know if you have anything to comment on you're technically B here. On this, but any other questions? But overall good. Oh, so okay. We did our accountant one, Caitlin Phillips, she's leaving us. Short stint, she was great. She actually was an art major and worked in an art gallery, so she actually found a position. I don't know if it was Ohio, I don't think it was local. Yeah, middle of the country, and that's great for her. We took a little different tack with that. A few of the accountants weren't working out. She wasn't really an accountant by trade, but had done some administration and just was bright. So I think if we could just get someone in that position, so she was good. But we're, you know, the good news is we put out the accountant one job offering, and we got a lot of great responses. So we've talked to about 3 or 4 candidates so far, and the best crop that I've seen. So the goal is obviously to get something, because it takes months to learn this system here. So you gotta, you know, get someone who also has some longevity and who kind of wants to be here and can do the job. And I think we got at least 2 or 3 candidates that sort of fit that bill. So that is it.
Anything else? All right, next on the agenda is Bill Kahn, and before you say anything, Bill, I want to thank you. Your back and forth with Chris and questions on the financials are very helpful. And thank you very much for doing that. It's a forgiveness. So now we're gonna talk about rates.
So this is somewhat of a, I think, a deferred conversation.
Yeah, it's a little bit because we haven't really finished the budget.
Months ago.
Yeah.
And I want to start on the second page. And I think in the past, we really haven't looked at rates in August. It, you know, it became a kind of a fall thing, and I think the positive value of looking at it now is that we can think about not necessarily the numbers, but how we will present this to the public. And I think as we go through this, I think that'll make more sense. But I want to start on it's page 1, but it's really page 2. But it says specific rate structure considerations. And I just want to run through these, and I'll have a brief comment. If there's questions, I think as we go through them, we might ask them. So right now, our large users are presented bills based on a meter. So, and most of our large users have multiple meters, but they also have properties in other parts of the city that are likely being billed at what I'll call the residential rate as opposed to the large user rate. Albany Med, St. Peter's, the state. But many of those large users are really not being charged the higher rate, the large user rate, or let's call it the super rate, which only New York State gets. And it would be a way to enhance revenue without really impacting any of the residential or small business within the city. Complicated. I'm not sure that it could be implemented now because I think there's a lot of data that has to be accumulated before that could be done. But again, those properties could be billed at a higher rate. The second
Let me
thing,
interrupt for a minute. It's my sense, though, that through Joe's leadership, we have a much better reading group than we've had before. With Jose, it really got things organized with help from Bill and others. Maybe that could be done.
Once, the way it is now, they're separate accounts. You'd have to combine all the accounts for these large users into one account if you wanted to do that.
right,
Each account it has the rate structure applied to each account separately. Would have to be aggregated into
right.
one account.
But couldn't that be done in the office? I mean, that
It would
doesn't.
be more of a thing to talk about with our Springbrook, our billing.
But again, I don't see that as something that could be implemented this year. There's some work that would have to be done. The second thing is what I call delinking the water and sewer rates. So today it's a one-to-one model. The cost of the water system and the cost of the sewer system are very different. And if that one-to-one model was changed somewhat, that's a consideration. The third thing is special assessments for, we talked about this a number of years ago, for certain improvements, lead abatement, or some other purpose. This morning, and I think we'll talk about it a little later, I saw what the county sewer folks are going to be doing, and there's going to be some very significant dollars we're going to have to pay. And perhaps having that as a separate charge added to the bill, at least it doesn't change what our customers are paying, but it changes the perception of where that money is going. So again, that's something to consider. The fourth one is implementing another business tier in the rate structure. So this was done, you might remember, in 2022. And what we did is we took, of our base rate, we took the highest users in that, and there might have been 80 or 100, if I remember, and they were brought up into the large users. They were not residential customers, they were commercial customers. And we really didn't hear much about it after it was implemented. It was a tough implementation, but that's something, again, that kind of keeps the residential customers and separates them from commercial customers within that base rate. The fifth thing is implementing disproportionate increases to large users. So that is best understood by looking at this sheet. And when the board and authority were created, in 1988, you'll see through 2006, what I'll call, well, what we call the tier 2 or the super rate, that was always the same as the large user rate. So you can see beginning in February 2007, the large users, which are the state of New York, had a uniquely different charge than our regular large users. And you can see, moving over to last year, January 2025, you can see that number is considerably higher than our regular large user rate. And again, it has nothing to do with residential customers. The next couple things are not as, perhaps not as important, but changes to the labor, material, and other charges, again, have minimal impact, but those are looked at every year. A lot of it relates to new construction. It would just seem it's an insignificant part of what these contractors are doing, whatever our charges are. And lastly, increasing, and this has come up many times, but increasing the frequency of billings. I don't think that this is cost effective, but folks talk about it. Well, your cash flow improves if you bill every month. And I think I'd rather see an enhanced focus on reviewing the billings before they go out over our 4-month period than trying to get more billings in. I think the labor cost, the postage cost is just doesn't make it worthwhile to go after the residential customers.
Yeah, if everything was electronic, the
Right.
bills were online and everybody was paying online, it'd be a different story.
Well, can we push getting bills online? I pay online my Wi-Fi bill, which is more than my water bill.
Mhm.
I pay every month to Spectrum and just go click and it goes.
I don't think the culture is there yet. I mean, we looked at it since we started implementing the online payment system. I think the vendor thought that we would get to a certain percentage by the end of year 1. It probably took us 3 years before we got there. We don't track that anymore, actually. We
Yeah,
track the number of people that are paying online. Be interesting to see if we could reconstruct that figure compared to what we had before. I can show you what we had before.
Yeah, let's
You
get
have
into
to
that.
share that with the board to either support or counter the having to go out for.
And it's a lot of checks. You'd think people have graduated from checks that they had.
We have people coming in paying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do, we deposit these every day.
Forgive me for asking, that question, but is it hybrid where some folks can pay online or online is not?
Online, you know,
Okay,
Yeah,
probably got, I don't know,
yeah,
30%.
it's not that.
We haven't looked in a long time.
Yeah.
It's not as high as I would have hoped, and as we thought.
The system level checks.
Other venues, I think it's a little higher percentage online.
Yeah,
Part of that's just probably legacy and culture.
yeah, actually, because we're moving, some of our folks that are now falling into the higher tiers, we're moving them into Route 7. They're becoming monthly bills, so we catch more of the industrial commercial stuff in a monthly bill, and with cellular needs is a way we've been having.
So the only other things I'd just like to quickly talk about is the last page. And these are just some common sense things that that I think about. And the first one is a 1% increase is equivalent to a $400,000 annuity. It's there forever, so. The difference, and I'm making this up, but the difference between a 6 and 7% increase is that 400,000 a year forever. So every percent is important, and it's important to get it in the right year. Tier 1 and 2, large users generate 40% of total system revenues. The other 60% are residential. And this is in dollars, not numbers of customers. You can see by decade the types of increases that were completed. In the 80s, it was for all, so those that 10-year period, it was 11%, 31, 62, 11, and then so far in this decade, 33%. So that's 149%, but the tier 1 has been 206%, and tier 2, again, the state, has been 231%. I also think it's interesting that, in our world, almost anything you buy, the more you buy, the less the cost.
Here.
In Albany, but it's the state and it's large users that can afford it. So,
It's called the Israeli pricing system.
so our large user tier 1 is 182% of the residential rate. The large user tier 2 is 218%. And the biggest issue is that last paragraph, and that is we just don't have a lot of growth in the city. And so almost all the incrementally higher revenue has to come from the same group of folks.
Little growth out at Nanotech. They're building 2 new buildings. That's gonna be possible.
Right.
Yeah, you got the Harriman campus, with the new Wadsworth lab at Harriman. I mean, some of that's transplanted use from other facilities that they have, but I think the net overall will be an increase. There's a new lab, DOT's put a new lab on the campus. There was some organic infill within the city, non-story office building, stuff that's gone on the rest of it, but everything helps, so it's moving in the right direction, but, it's still, the pie's only so big, we just want to try to stuff it over the door. And I think, again, with respect to the more you use, the higher you pay. If we promote sustainability within the water systems, that's how it should be. We're trying to promote conservation and water use of resources.
Joel, could you talk a little bit about how it might be done to change from 1-to-1 water to sewer, how we would do that? How we measure it?
Oh, we already have the information. It's, we can essentially distill within our expenses, those that are associated with the sewer collection, those that are associated with the water source distribution and treatment, and our admin costs, we would just split 50-50. And then we've got the 8 million sewer wastewater treatment. I've always been a fan of a water rate, a sewer rate, and I like the idea of having the sewage disposal number as a separate item in there. That's how that's distributed. It's doable. The 1-to-1 thing it's easy, but it's probably not numerically correct.
Presumably, it's gonna be some higher costs on the sewer side, given a county bill that is probably gonna go up by $1 million.
That's the sewage treatment side, the sewer collection, that particular unit, the pump stations, the sewer and portables and stuff like that. We've got Beaver Creek, which is out there now. We're starting to collect costs for that, so. I think it's something that can be implemented relatively easily. We can track those costs by by component. We've already looked at it, what the cost really is to produce a gallon of water or 1,000 gallons of water. So,
You know, with the county, you take, I think, capital spend,
yeah.
we always kind of thought that they were pretty much in balance, the water and sewer things, but with the county, they'll looking like it's gonna be so much larger, it was gonna have, probably should have different rates for water and sewer.
But that's probably something we can maybe start beginning to use the Hamberley, to show them what the splits are between the water treatment distribution, part of the sewer pump stations collection. I think you just have a separate thing on the sewage disposal. Be interesting to see what those numbers look like on the expense side.
Yeah.
We need a debt service.
Yeah.
Very significant.
Yeah, there.
So. Those are my thoughts. I think as we get closer to October, we should have some kind of better idea of what we want to do.
Well, we'll have a good idea what our expenses are gonna be for next year. We'll have that available next week or so. And our,
Yeah.
frankly, we're gonna be looking at that pretty hard. I'll talk about that more on some term, but I think it would be helpful to look at the split.
Yeah.
Can we get the data on the sewer differential?
Yeah, well, we have it all.
Yeah, we can do it.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
We've actually worked in it internally over the years. We've kind of looked at that just as a, Beagles type of exercise.
Seems to me there are really two things we could probably do. One, the combination. While we met at buildings all over the place, seeing one. And I wouldn't think that'd be so difficult.
Well, is it Albany Medical Center? Is it Albany Medical Partners LLC? Is it this, is it that? So, I mean, there's a lot of ways that people look at the real estate holdings. It may not be under one necessarily owner. So I think that, that complicates the issue a little bit. Who's actually has that parcel and who's running it?
Okay.
The doctor offices, an Albany Med Practice is a different LLC than, how that goes up. So that might be a little more complicated than you think it might be.
I can tell you we're doing a comprehensive spring break training on the second week of September. So that's something that we put on that
Are
agenda.
you going to Florida for that rate thing? There's a
Yeah.
3-day rate conference in Florida that I think would be helpful for us to attend. I've shared that with Chris. Bill's got a conflict. I think there's only a limited folks people that you go to that. One of you guys or really should be looking at that. I think
Yeah.
that would be.
No, definitely interested, but this training is critical to address some of those items and being able to operate in Springbrook, do reports altogether. That data. Is it possible to easily combine, just under one
My
client?
suggestion would be reschedule the training so you can go to Florida for that rate.
Yeah. We might not have to, it might not be the full week, so let me look at it. Yeah.
But I think that would give us, from the best practices, what other folks are doing industry wide, they all have the same challenges. And frankly, I think the uncertainty of flow down federal funding for a lot of the things that we're doing for the next 3.5 years is problematic, and we need to factor that into how we're generating dollars to do things that we need to do to keep the system intact.
I've been looking at this new AI stuff called chat.
Yeah,
It's interesting, and I've got a handout, which I'm gonna send you around. And I don't know how reliable this stuff is. I pass it around. Because in a way, it'll make you all feel better. Our rates are lower than the national average.
Yeah.
And our rates, according to Tom DiNapoli in the controller's office, our rates are lower than the average in New York State.
Correct.
And that's all in this information. I just shared that with you to read when you get home.
I think everybody did water rates for gallons.
No, I know.
Cubic meter, cubic foot, 100 cubic foot. And
But speaking of that, can we change the bill so it says what people are paying for the gallon? We talked about it.
That's another thing to discuss with.
that's part of figuring out how to do that.
Okay.
It's on the list.
Get it on the list.
That's on the, there's about 50 things on the list.
Take the rate, even though it's published in, we can say equivalent to $5 per 1,000 hours, we can do that,
Yeah,
but everything, we, Bill and I, think a lot of us in the engineering area with the professional journals have been looking at. Tremendous amount of data on waste affordability, how it looks at, national things, we are members of the Association of Metropolitan Water Agency Authorities. And, we are affordable by
right,
any measure of it, but again, you have to remember that. We have a community that has a relatively lower median household income. And so it's just something to be aware of,
right.
but water it's not free. And we've got some challenges to us. We're gonna work off those, I think, for the next few weeks.
Are there any more comments or questions or suggestions, ideas? Before we move on? Let's go to the commissioner's report.
Can you pull up the KPI thing that I do? Let's go to I'm gonna look to the next page a little bit. A couple of things that were challenging and put down a little bit, and we look at the all the work that we do, it's tough to look at, so maybe shrink it a little bit. On the second page, you can shrink the, you can see, there you go. And I wanna go down. Second, the middle one. Okay, right there. So one of the things that we struggle with, it doesn't really show on here, because we're not looking at the whole thing, but the amount of repair work that we do has grown substantially over the past 10 years. And we have trouble keeping up with restoration of the work. We have added staff to the restoration crew, but to get them to split the crew so that we're doing some concrete work while we're doing other work, it's been problematic. So what we've done probably have to do this year once again is get a contract out for restoration to get caught up at the end of the year. So that's something that we don't plan on doing every year, but we'll probably have to budget that. And it ties into a broader issue about what the plan is moving forward, as far as budget is concerned. So I just can talk about that a little bit from my perspective with budget. We know we're gonna have a change of administration, having a change of leadership in the department. We've got an expected planned retirement of a operations manager next year. We're looking at, talking to Chris, we think there's some things that we can do to leverage the skill sets of our folks, perhaps a little bit more than we have in the past. We've got a very talented inventory manager who's heavily involved in purchasing, works with RF and Chris a lot, so we're looking at how do we become, maybe more efficient and look at combining purchasing, inventory, the fact that we've got a skill set there. We've got the right people on the bus, we just gotta get them in the seats and do the things that we need them to do to be more efficient. We are incredibly space challenged in this building. We have no room to really add people. Bill and I have talked about maybe busting these offices up a little bit. It's very difficult for us to use, so we'll probably put in the budget next year, small modular building to put on the property, to put some unit in there. We need to free up some office space inside where we're heading, so that's a challenge for us. So we're gonna try to do that at minimal expense, but I think right now we're kind of busting at the seams. I think when you walk through the building to see that. We have interviewed a PE, an engineering PE. We finally got a qualified applicant. We met with that individual yesterday. We've interviewed an engineering project manager that would fill our dance card out for those positions. And frankly, we think we've got two good candidates here, so if we are able to bring those and fill those positions, that gives us the bandwidth we need to execute the mission. We've been really fortunate with the interns that we've had, and some of the folks working with us, so we've been moving that along a little bit. But again, those are, whatever space we had, we'll fill that out with those two hires. So that's a challenge for us. Other things with budget. Per the guidance that you had given me in my annual evaluation, I have been documenting the tasks that I typically work on. And I think you'll recognize that everybody kind of brings different things to the table, any other commissioner or professional, so I'm trying to look at. Of all the things that we do, whether daily, weekly, monthly, blah, 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 and who's a supporting individual that, helps assist or would do that on its own, so I hope to have that for the board next month. To take a look at, Karen's helped me, kind of organize thoughts in that a little bit, but I've got it in a format I think will be helpful. And we have been working on budget, trying to wrap all that up, so part of the 2026 budget is looking in the context of the things that we know we've got to get done next year with other folks doing the tasks. And how does the organization satisfy some of these pending staff changes? Our intent is to have a very strong civil service structure that I think hopefully operate a little bit more efficiently. We'll likely go from 2 operations managers to 1 next year with one of the retirements. That is some potential burden to the one individual. How do we infill under that? So Chris and I have been looking at things that support, the back end of the house, the billing and the accounting. How do we maybe move some of that stuff around? Do we need, what do we need without adding people? How do we get duties and responsibilities that fit what we need to do? So the challenge is out there. Karen, go to the top of the next page. I was interested when looking at Bethlehem and Gilderland. What was that? Where'd that come from? The next, just scroll down to the next page. There you go. Can you make that bigger and just look at the on the top? You're looking at, okay. I want to look at the alcove. You look at those elevations, what we're seeing here, when you look at that and the county sewer bills or the county metered information a little farther down. Okay, look at the county sewer district numbers here. This is the old one. Actually, I updated this yesterday. So this is what we put in the south plan. This is what would be a dry month. This is a kind of wet. Remember how wet? Well, this is what, July, is that May, June, July? Oh, sorry. Freaking me out. Anyhow, I think this month, we were like, was it 17 million pounds? Bill, I think we just got the report yesterday. So the total we had for the county sewer district this month was 22 million. And that's how dry July was. And when you look at that, go back up to, can you go to the top? When you look at alcove, we augmented flowing to the alcove to get the elevation up a little bit. April, we were pretty good. We actually spilled in June. And then we went from 618, 617, 616. And I think at right now today, we were at 615 and 0.2, something like that. So we dropped down about 3 feet in 60 days, 50, 60 days. That's how dry it's. And that's when you see Bethlehem and Gilderland using a lot of water. So, it just reinforces how sensitive the system is to some of the climate things that we're dealing with. And again, to promote conservation, the more used to more, the more you back to pay. But so we're in good shape compared to what, we're still, we're 90, we're probably about 615 get us. We're probably about 90% of capacity, of usable capacity in the reservoir. And from what we are typically year to date, we're still in good shape, but that's always the thing, you'd always want to be 100% all the time of what your normal stuff is, but there's a lot of variation in climate and what we're seeing in these short-term things where you go from very wet to very dry. And if it stays very dry, you get into a pattern. It gets a little scary. So that's not my boom and doom thing for the day, but the metrics and how we trend this information is interesting to me. So there's not really else on the KPIs. I think at some point, we want to talk about how, if they have any value, does anybody really look at these other than me? I don't really know. So that's something that perhaps the board can give some guidance to us. So we know, looking forward to 2026, what actual trends and information you want to look at. Actually, the mayor's out this morning with, I think Rebecca is representing the water department at Manning Boulevard and Western Avenue. Talking about infrastructure, looking at the lead services as, and some of the other work that's being done by the city engineer and DGS with infrastructure stuff. So Katie's out of town, Bill and I are here, so Rebecca's representing the water department, talking about lead services. And we are, trending to be well on track to over 700 lead services this year that are done. We'd like to get that number up to about 1,000. Working with the city engineer and the paving project is really helpful. But again, what we need to do internally is how do we take the resources that we have, be able to do the repairs that we need to do for the water main breaks and the valves that we need to fix and the hydrants that we need to flush. And at the same time, have a dedicated crew to do lead services that allow us to do these 200 lead services in-house a year. So these are the challenges that we're throwing out to the operations guy and say, look, we're not gonna hire more people to make it happen. You gotta take what you have and make it work. So that's an efficiency issue, and hopefully we can work with our collective bargaining folks and have them understand how we need some work rules perhaps changed a little bit to help us get to a happier place.
Is that still stalled? The negotiations still stalled?
They're gonna go to a mediation or arbitration, whatever that next phase is, or yes, it's still, I guess, impasse is the word. We talked before last month about the billing incentive for customers participating water. I think there's not much more we need to talk about. I think the board agreed that the program we have proposed for, folks that enroll in it, stay in it, get a 10% credit on the water bill. I think there's a resolution for that package today for.
Yep.
And I don't know, did we report Bill the last time on the lead service sampling? We had a good sampling result for the first part of the year. We were under our.
Yeah, we have, we have two sample periods a year, January through June, and then July through December. So, last year we were over the 15 parts per billion. And we had to do certain public notifications and whatever that. This first 6 months of this year, we're under that. So that's good. We did our reporting to EPA that under administrative order. And then we'll see how we do on this 6 month period. If we have 2 6-month periods, it puts us in a different performance thing with regard to having to do 7% removals per year, replacements per year, but it's not really going to change our program. But it does help us out in the administrative order, and I think they're happy with everything we presented to them about our program.
And I think currently we're taking 60 samples minimum.
We take 60 samples.
Based on population under, have been under 100,000.
Well, it's based on the official census, which is every 10 years, so even though there are estimated census numbers that have us higher than 100, it won't be official. If you go over 100, it won't actually impact our sample, would tell before 30.
The health department's aware of the fact that the city is reporting a population of 102,000. That would trigger us to use 100% instead of 60. So it's something we need to get squared away before January 1. Either way, it's more samples doesn't hurt us necessarily.
We typically have more than 60 because we're trying to make sure we have 60 and we're getting volunteers. And
and I think having that incentive program certainly will help us maintain that number and perhaps attract more once we actually publish it, that we've got that incentive program in that. Space utilization I talked about, I'm working with Matt, I'll work with Matt Strom, who's our facilities manager, who I think you've met, I think at one point. Matt's awesome, he helps us pretty much down at 35 Area Boulevard, and he is very handy, he can do just about anything, he's another guy. So space utilization is an issue the board's gonna have to look at and maybe make some decisions as part of either our budget this year or certainly next year. Moving forward. I don't think I really had anything else on my end at this point. Bill?
Yeah, Freedom Springs, if people are familiar with what's all the construction going on in Fulton. It's really been a busy area and so Freedom Springs, they put in some new water mains that are being deeded over to the water board in the permanent easements. And so I think we have a resolution today and we're going to being able to execute easement documents with that developer is if everything is copacetic with Laura and the review of the documents.
I have a question. And when developers do these projects, and I know they have to talk to the water department to determine how they're gonna get water. Do we do, do we do evaluations as to how much potential water they may use to determine?
Yeah, they're required to submit a water report and a sewer report.
Okay.
And they have to do stormwater reports. We have to review some of that with the health department on the water side, with DEC on the sewer side. We have to indicate that we've got capacity. A lot of times for the lending people, we need to do a will serve letter that indicates that we have capacity. And sometimes we have to put some terms on that, but in the case where there's extensions that are being done by the developer, we say, hey, we can provide you with water, but there's gonna have to be an extension done at developer's expense.
In some cases, to have them have a more reliable system, we would ask them to incorporate into their plans some things that would help us.
So yeah, like a section of water board sewer, you know, if we, like when we're doing the Chick-fil-A, they line a section of sewer in front of their property. So, and other development projects too, like in the south end, there are certain sections of sewer that are requiring to be renovated.
But all that stuff allows us to kind of calculate how much additional revenue we'll be able to generate as a result of the project. So it's my understanding there's gonna be a project on Ontario Street. I don't know how many units, but
Yeah,
it'll be-
in fact, there's been some discussion about that because the developer is proposing to acquire section of right away. And then, so it's not, they haven't acquired it yet because they're trying to get their finances set up. That's another one. But there's some water main to be replaced, some sewer to be replaced. And if they acquire that property, they'd have to give us a permanent easement along with that. So that's moving through its own planning, the process with the planning department.
I think the one thing too, Anthony, when you look at our system on the water side, you know, was designed back in 1930. And at that time, the population of the city was 125,000 people. You know, so certainly there's a lot of capacity in the system but that obviously with the age of the system, some of that gets reduced a little bit, but so it's really more than we can do, the more development, just it's more of a.
Yeah, our city, you know, is old, as you know.
That's why we always have the ability and willingness to serve them, but having the developer help us with maybe some enhancements to the system to extend the longevity, things of that nature are helpful. So we'll work together to the same.
Plus, we don't want new development happening and then we've got a water main break or a sewer failure and bring the sidewalk in front of that building.
All right, thank you.
Anything else, Bill, you want to follow?
Yeah, the county sewer district is gonna have a public hearing coming up next week, and I think you may have all seen this. They've got really the need to rebuild the north plant and the south plant. And they're proposing about $200 million worth of improvements, 65 million, which it's gonna happen pretty soon with their sludge. They're talking about new incinerators. And they've got I think $28 million worth of grant money associated with that. And they've got some hardship loan money associated with that. So that's one project, that's going to happen pretty soon, so that impact is really gonna come right away. The other $113 million that they're planning on spending on the north and the south plant. They also are planning to be moving ahead with a financing, probably first or second quarter next year with that. Whether that's actually gonna be $113 million ask, or whether they may scale that back. I've had discussions with them in regard to that. And the way it's been portrayed in this letter, it's as though this is all gonna happen in the next 5 years. It seems awfully ambitious, and that would be the case, but we wanna just go and comment. And I guess I kind of think the water board wants to support the renewal of this infrastructure. And just wanted to comment that if this is all gonna be done in 5 years with a $5 million impact on the cost passed down to the water board, that's gonna be an awfully big impact on water rates, water and sewer rates and all of it. And maybe they should be looking at trying to get more help from the state, and we might want to be looking at some arrangement that in regard to how this should be financed. Because water board actually, and the water municipal finance authority might have a way of getting financing at a better, more beneficial than the sewer district. The sewer district has struggled to get hardship money from the state. And actually what they're saying is they're gonna get 25 million in hardship money for this first project with the substance center. But that's gonna be it, because they normally allow 25 million in hardship money for a 5-year period. So if they want to do the rest of these projects, it's gonna be at market rate or subsidized rate. It's not gonna be at 0% interest on the hardship money, so. That's it probably will be things over a longer period of 5 years, but I think looking for doing this in tranches and trying to maximize what they can get from WQIP money or the state's water infrastructure improvement funds. We know the federal money may not be there after this round of stuff, but maybe the state's gonna come out with more environmental bond acts, maybe they'll consider with water infrastructure improvement money. In the past, it's been for 25% costs of projects. Depends on scoring. County sewer district hasn't had a consent order to upgrade their facilities. They kind of want to get one to get better scoring in the state system. So I intend to do that, going to the public hearing and just expressing briefly the support for the project, but the concern about council rates.
This is really important because as Bill Kahn points out, this is one of our big expenses and we have no control. Can't tell it to stop raining, I mean, it's huge.
It's, 50-year-old facility, and there's just a lot of things that all come and do at the same time. Which they've been working on trying to organize this for maybe the last 10 years, but they really feel like they can't wait on a lot of these implementation of these movements. So that's what else did Lincoln Park is moving ahead. I think the last we heard, we may have some of the way in some of the pavilion structure, but otherwise it's moving ahead. The fluoridation project is moving ahead with Gallo as the general contractor, and Spring as the electrical contractor. Grants and financing, I had, given the board, that was, my report. A lot of this kind of repeats from the last one, but, we still are having some problem with this drinking water 18903 of getting, so we can get disbursements. It's been, DOH approvals and compliance with everybody, we recorded this. But that's been payments, disbursements under that have really gotten delayed, and we're hoping that within the next month or so, we can free that up. This, we've been paying for Gallo on the ration project, but we haven't gotten any disbursements on that yet. On our line and maintenance building, actually, we're doing better in getting the DOH approvals. We're still not getting our NWPE compliance squared away. So we should be able to get a couple $1 million worth of disbursements if we could just get past some of these approvals. So that's, I wanted to point that out. On the next page, on Basic Creek Reservoir, we still haven't decided to move ahead with financing yet. We're gonna be, we've applied to WWP, but we did move ahead with a joint application for permit. And there has been a meeting with Design Schnabel and us and with DEC and Army Corps of Engineers on Basic Creek to start looking at the permitting. And that's also going to DEC for the dam safety review.
Bill, when you and Chris and Harv are looking at your forecasting, are we looking at building these future borrowings into the
Yeah, we have what our normal amortization is gonna be, and we take an estimate of what note is gonna go long term, so we don't, in that next year, so that's when we start paying that amortization, principal and interest, or just principal,
So
depending on what it
until
is.
potential financing, we're gonna plug that X number into whatever year we think that.
We do, and we got a little breathing room. Don't know these notes, these are 2-3 year projects. There's not an amortization to that. Sometimes we don't pay, sometimes it comes up and then come. So call it 2 to 3 years before that note where all of a sudden we gotta start paying. But that's the challenge of estimating that, of when that's gonna happen and the actual amount. We put in a kind of general number just to cover ourselves. But yeah, yeah, we do that.
Yes, our financials usually are showing both some of the costs on the short-term notes as well as on the long-term.
Yeah, there are payments over the course of the year, but it's not as regimented as the amortization on real debt.
Not, it's not an amortization schedule, it's more, but yes, for the future, what the principal and interest are on the short terms. Yeah, on the drinking water 19554, we did get an approval on our engineer's report. That we haven't closed on financing, but we're working towards closing on the financing. On our lead service line replacement 19456, we got paid $2.7 million recently for reimbursing us for technical force account for filled on their own staff. So that was a nice thing to get that into. And so we have $10 million left, and I guess just to point out at the bottom of page 2, we've got a bunch of contracts. Newcastle was contract 1 and $1.5 million. Luisi at $1.6 million. Newcastle on Manning Boulevard at 600,000, and Central Avenue West at 300,000. So each of these are going to be against this $10 million that we have remaining for lead service line replacement. So that's going to eat into quite a bit into that $10 million. But there's a central Ave East that's going to be another big streets project that's going to have service line replacement. That's not yet out to build. That'll be a next year project, which will be streets. So that's and also on page 3, you'll see we now have a listing of 19992 which is for $14 million. It's gonna be the next tranche of money for lead service line replacement. I mean, we got it in the intended use plan, we'll see what kind of grant money that, the state comes up with, in regard to that, the infrastructure money from the Fed is questionable, and see what happens with that stuff, maybe, because it's kind of bipartisan to be lead service on the Fourth Street. Something will happen with but it's hard to really know. And other than that, we're trying to get some reimbursements on some of the big stuff. And that should be able to get dispersed about $1 million. Those we just they will have to PNC, just like a slow process. And Academy Road, we finished up our Academy Road constructed wetlands. We had more work going on in Hackett. I mean, not related to the volume break we had yesterday.
Yeah, ask me about that one.
But in that same quarter.
Bill, can I add to that? Lisa told me about it. I drove over and went down and looked. I found the road. And if you could get some pictures of that, it's breathtakingly beautiful what they did. This sort of estuary that they created in that valley. It's fantastic.
Oh,
So once again, our board chairman was trespassing us on. You remember when he took Lisa down to the waterway?
Yeah.
It is pretty, it's unfortunate it is on private property,
Yeah.
but.
But there's a little road. I didn't go on. You could, on the top of the hill, you look down.
We'll try to get a couple of drone photos to share that, because it is really nice looking at.
Wow.
yeah, the Northway is an easement, so you're allowed.
Oh, I want to well and good.
I'm on the cruise.
Joe, I'm not allowed anywhere without Joe to prove it.
No.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, and I think we have some drone footage of that, so. I think we should. And the tide gauge project, we're pretty much all done with that here. We tied up Rensselaer Street, some of that. We're finishing up, we're gonna be striping down by U-Haul building and getting the fencing and stuff out of there. Get the all done. And we go to page 5. We're working on these few financings, 2000 and 2100. They both have a bill money associated with it, so we're trying to go to the finish line. We've got engineers reports approved. It's just a matter of really EFC going to the loan committee and also having closing dates. EFC seems to be getting slower and slower with this process, so some of these financings they're saying don't need to be done until next September. But we'd like to close on these so we can start doing water main replacements, facility replacements, and do our thermal terrace project. We've got a lot of grant money associated with this. $8 million of federal money on that surplus. And so that's what I won't hit every one of these, but that's kind of the highlight.
Any questions? And your Google, Bill, thank you very much. After. Terrific. Laura?
Sure. My first item is the tax challenges that we are continuing to pursue against both towns of Westerlo and Clemens. At the last board meeting, I updated the board that we were going to go ahead and read 2025 taxes. And the next agenda item on that is that our consultant, Don Fisher, and I have been in discussion about how best to sort of present his findings to the towns. And we think that either an in-person or a Zoom meeting with the town's attorneys and their assessors to present informal settlement discussion would be the best option at this point. So I'll keep the board posted on that. We're looking to schedule that in September. The next agenda item that I have is a WQIP update. So last year, if the board recalls, we had entered into a purchase contract for 2 parcels spanning 32 acres of property in Westerlo. And those parcels have been identified for source water protection. That is what we've been sort of referring to as the BRAT property. And so we're close to closing on that. We have been pulling out a little bit to see how far we can move forward on our DEC approvals. Right now, DEC is reviewing our appraisal. And while the WQIP grant program is always intended to be reimbursement, my goal was to get all DEC approvals before we close so that we knew that we would be entitled to that reimbursement. We've extended with the seller twice now. Actually, today was another update to our projected closing date. We had said end of August, but that's not going to happen. So he has been gracious enough to extend again with us. And so my recommendation will be to the board to, pursue this property. I'll keep kind of shaking the tree with DEC and our WQIP consultant. But I have, certainty from our WQIP consultant that approvals can come after closing, post-closing. So, again, I just want to kind of put on the record today that the purchase price for this was just under $29,000. So I'll keep the board updated on what's happening, but we don't want to lose this property from the seller. And we don't want a developer buy it. Let's be serious. So it's source water protection and we want to, protect that. So I'll keep the board updated, but I just thought it would be helpful to keep you in the loop on our DEC approvals and closing. The next item on the agenda is 165 Orange Street purchase. I've been in contact with Habitat for Humanity's council on this one. Also, sort of part of this transaction is not only that we would acquire 165 Orange Street, but that we also acquire utility easements over 167 through 180 or so. Those parcels sort of in that whole complex. I've been working with her. I had asked for as-built surveys of the infrastructure, so we're waiting on that.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions. I
Yeah.
want to pull the trigger on buying that or signing easements.
Yeah.
Get as-built drawings.
Absolutely.
I have questions on where the laterals were coming down from Clinton Avenue. I didn't see them on
Yeah.
some as-built, so we have a lot of questions.
Okay, sure. And that is, that's an ongoing conversation with council. So I just, as of yesterday, had another email from her. We'll keep moving on that. Next item on my report is Queen Solar. There's a resolution before the board for our chairman to execute a license agreement for an owner of real property as well as her developer, solar developer. This property, her property is located in Queens, abutting the water board's property pipeline. And so the Queens Solar developer is called Brick Development. They have a site plan in front of the Queens Planning Board, and the Queens Planning Board flat, you've got to get an agreement with your joining neighbor, aka the water board, because you'll be traversing over the pipeline in that area for your construction. So the developer has been good to work with, the council for the developer has been good to work with, and so we're just asking for a resolution from the board to approve or allow an authorized chairman to execute a license agreement, subject to council approval, make sure we have all of our protections. The next item is the memorandum of agreement with the Albany Housing Authority. I had drafted, and this is for their restoration and rehabilitation of Steamboat Square. Really, this MOA was just to set out that the Albany Housing Authority would undertake some infrastructure improvements, water sewer infrastructure improvements, and that deeds would be utility easements would then be deeded over to the water board. They have quite a level of funding and financing streams for this large project, this affordable housing project. So I've been in contact with AHA's council. and sent over our draft of the MOA, which I'm sure will go through levels of review on their end, but that's the update. And what else do I have? Let's see. I think that's it.
Any questions? I have a comment. I have a sense you've been very busy,
Yes.
and I'll tell you why I know that. All the resolutions are short and to the point.
I do it for you.
Thank you, thank you. Good, all right, Steve?
Right. I don't have access to some things, so thanks Karen for pulling that up. Okay, so July, we saw a similar trend. We're still seeing Facebook starting to just kind of nosedive in terms of engagement. It's our largest followership, so when we see, you know, that number dipping, it doesn't mean we don't have the reach that we used to have, but we're still starting to see people moving away from Facebook's platform and starting to move other places. The Instagram platform is growing, as you can see, and we're going to start to continue to see that trend. So one of the nice things that's happened recently, if anybody remembers the gnome, Henry Bellinome, he is a tourism influencer that's around here. It's this guy that walks around with a 3-foot gnome like this, and he just takes pictures of it all over the place. It's actually pretty great, and it gets people to talk. So I've been invited to his group of local influencers, and there's about 30 of us in there, and we're all starting to kind of work together to help grow each one of our platforms. So we should start to see this number continue to grow. We should see the usership continue to grow. In that, we're about 550 plus users there, but we're still around 2,200 on the Facebook platform. The Reddit platform, you know, there's 75,000 people on that. That's a whole different beast. When we put things up there, like yesterday's water main break, that got over 5,300 views. So we don't get anywhere near that or either of these platforms. So with the Reddit platform, it's just, you got to be careful. You know, it's moderated by people, and if you do too much, they will throttle your post. And so we just want to be mindful of that platform and respect the conversations happening there. So our top reel was Play Streets. It had 1 hour and 20 minutes. That's a good comedy. About 8 reactions, 1 comment, share, had 815 views. So it's that one there was just really kind of featuring what we're doing while we were at Play Streets. It's a good program that the rec department does across the city, brings people in the neighborhood together, and they just feature all the different departments that are there. Have some bounce houses, music, food. It's a really great community engagement piece. So the water bar. This Wednesday was supposed to be the last day. I'm gonna try to do this coming Wednesday for the last one, but it was a success. A lot of good engagement happened. A lot of real good conversations out in front of every one of the libraries. I was able to partner up with the neighborhood services group, and each one of their reps, there's I think 6 or 7 reps across the city. They have specific territories, so they came and sat there with me. It was nice that they were there with me because they get a lot of questions from across different residents from the city about many different things. So they were able to hear kind of my chops when it came to just discussing things about our department to give them at least some direction when they get those questions. So it was a really good learning experience for them. I got to learn a lot more about the things that they're doing and how they're engaging with people, and some of their frequent flyers that they knew. Got a chance to know some of the residents within those groups there. So it was a really good positive experience. We're going to continue to build on that.
I think that's also an opportunity for branding, what the things that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Having the water bar at a lot of events that we can promote, making tap water with, non-plastic, appropriate containers.
Yeah.
That's really where we head with that.
Yeah, the great thing, talk about affordability, it had a big 10-gallon jug there, tell people about how much more affordable just a refilled water bottle is versus plastic. So conversation's real good. So that's coming to an end. And as the fall comes, I'll figure something out with you. So I do have to say, I think Chuck knows this young lady right here. So National Jello Day, it's just another way to just get in front of people doing something kind of silly. And it got a lot of views. It had, over 2,000 views on it between Instagram and Facebook. That was a very good engagement on those two platforms. I did not put it up on Reddit. I just kept it on Facebook and Instagram. But within that, I had 2.5 hours of watch time and a lot of interactions. And Lisa was a great person to have to help pump that up.
What Lisa said was, everything tastes better with Albany water.
Yeah. So, we're able to just kind of do something. So I got some, snarky comments in there, but that's okay. I get it. But sometimes you just want to get a little weird and do something interesting. And because it's kind of like, when you're walking down the shelf of the grocery store, it's just the same thing. And then you see that one thing that's just different than everything else, and it kind of draws your attention. So was kind of the thought process there. It helped pump up our usership and our engagement. Sorry, our proud post that we had done for July, right? Yeah, for July, I featured the Capital Region Community Investment Trust. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's a really great program that's happening down in South End. It's run by a friend of mine, Ruth Castle. And what it is, it's a community investment into this one building. I want to say it's the old Coliseum building that's down there. And in there are barbershops and salons. There's soon to be, hopefully, a coffee shop in there. And residents can pay within a specific red line district. Residents can pay anywhere from $10 to $100 per month to claim ownership within that structure, and it provides them with dividends back as the more value of that property and that whole model continues to grow. They had a lot of success with this out in Oregon, and so they brought this thing here, and Ruth's trying to get this thing up off the ground. It's a really great program, and it's going to really help anchor that South End and give the South End something to work for. Coming up in August and in September, CIPP features with Kurt, once that we can get those. Water wall partnerships continuing to grow. Neighborhood association engagement fluoride communication. Just a quick update on that. The letters are with the printer and they should be going out shortly. It is posted on our website. And then just more continued cross department engagement. So just a lot more working together across the city. Any questions or any comments? Anything that I can help?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Joe, do we have any new business?
No. There is something in regard to Bethlehem, I had a request by email from their public works commissioner, Paul Penn, about increasing for next year, increasing their minimum amount.
I wondered why.
But what the ask was whether they could increase their minimum amount from 35 million to 40 million. Which seems a little odd in that they're taking much more this year. But their thought is, the reason why they've been taking so much more is because they provide water to that cogen plant that's by Sabic. And the cogen plant is called to produce more power this year because of the high demand for power.
Is that
Anyway.
gone?
So I guess it's somewhat unknown, how much they have to provide to that location, but anyway, they requested whether we can open up negotiations to change from 35 million to 40. So I guess I'll get out there. It hasn't really come home officially, but that was something that needed to be done for January.
Do they want to look at that perhaps in the context of what they actually used this year before they open up negotiations and lock in on a number that they know going out of the gate is going to be too low?
Well, that's when Paul had asked me about that, I emailed back and said, "What you used this much
66 million in 1 month.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. I mean, if we want to point out to them how much they've used in 2025, it seems somewhat. To negotiate for just 5 million more doesn't seem like much of a modification.
When we talk to them again, we'll put it on the agenda.
But it's not only just the amount, it's the rate, because you're pulling that $3 million down to pay.
Yeah, our agreement actually says they shouldn't exceed 2.5. They actually exceeded 2.5. And of course, if it's not affecting our operations, we don't mind providing it, but actually our permits, we have like, you can see with one of the job permits, call for a maximum of 2.5. So we probably need a footnote our annual reporting, we need to see with the reasoning. For that, but it's another thing to discuss with Bethlehem when they want to have something to negotiate. You've also exceeded the maximum that was in contract for the negotiating.
Any questions about that or comments? We'll move on. Resolutions. Resolution 2558. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board approves and adopts the policy on billing incentives for customers participating in the water service compliance lead program. Like Joe's talked about this, I think it makes a lot of sense. Any questions? I have a motion to approve. Second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Resolution 2559. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board authorizes the chairman to execute all documents necessary and convenient to enter into agreement or agreements with Joyce Marksdale and RIDC Development to license the use of a portion of the premises. The terms of said license agreement shall be subject to council approval. Laura, you want to add anything to that?
No, this is the Queen Solar request for access over the pipeline.
That makes good sense. I have a motion to approve. So second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Resolution 2560. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board accepts the utility easements over 64 Colvin Avenue, 66 Colvin Avenue, and 944 Central Avenue as set forth in the easement map dated August 12, 2024, annexed here to is Appendix A. And the legal descriptions of the boundaries of the utility easements collective annexed here to as Appendix B. Good job, Laura. And hereby authorizes the chairman to execute all documents necessary and convenient to accept said utilities and the terms of which shall be subject to council approval. Any questions? Laura, you want to add anything?
No, I think folks have touched on this during the earlier part of the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Motion approved. So moved. Second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Resolution 2561. Now therefore be it resolved. This is a good one. All now for be resolved that the Albany Water Board approves change order number 3 to the Academy Ward Construction Wetland Project contract with Peter Luisi Brothers Contracting. Contract value is reduced to $1,618,703.47. The contract completion date remains the same. Nice to get some money back. I think it's $123,000. I don't know, Chris. Right. Let's have no questions. Let's approve. All have a motion to approve. Second, all in favor? Aye. That was easy. Resolution 2562. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board approves change order 1G to the Lincoln Park Learning Garden Project contract with Peter Luisi and Brothers Contracting to include plumbing construction work, increasing the contract amount by $57,000. The new contract value is $2,067,000. There's no change to the original contract completion date, December 1st. I thought their rationale was pretty clear. Are there any questions? Comments? I have a motion to approve.
So move second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. Resolution 2563. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board approves change order LB-01 to the Zero Water Filtration Plant Line Building Contract with Clearspan Fabric Structures International, Inc., increasing the contract by $4,940. New contract value is $172,025.91. There's no change to the original contract completion date of November 13th. Again, I thought it was pretty clear. I have a motion to approve.
So
I'll move second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution 2564, now for be it resolved that the Albany Water Board approves change order MV-01 with Zero Water Filtration Plant Maintenance Building Contract with Clearspan Fabric Structures International, increasing the contract amount $2,480. New contract is $177,000, $177,253.04. There's no change to the original contract completion date of November 13th. Again, same rationale, pretty obvious. I'm gonna have a motion to approve. Second, all in favor? Aye. Is that it? That's it? Are there any other comments or things that people want to talk about? Been a good meeting. Our next meeting is Friday, September 26th. And one of the things we talked about, I'd like to urge you all to thinking about it. What can we do with the rate structure? What mechanisms can we change? Let's think about that between the meetings and we can keep it on the agenda so we're talking about it and not jumping to conclusions in December. So there's nothing else. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good meeting.